Marxism very much does not posit that there is no real world, material or ephemeral.
Right, it's actually materialist. That's sort of the foundation.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
I thought it would be pretty funny for us as union workers, union members, people who have been union officers, to react to Jordan Peterson's message to CEOs. Now, Adam, you're pretty offline, generally speaking, but you had an idea of who Jordan Peterson was, because you said something about, because I was listening to him, getting the clips as I came in to the studio this morning. So you do know who Jordan Peterson is?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I've ever listened to a full video of his, or certainly I've never read his books. I know of him. The general vibe I get from him is that he's kind of a mixture of like standard self-help geared towards young white men primarily, with a mixture of just totally batshit reactionary politics, and especially around masculinity and feminism. That's my read on him. So yeah, I'm coming in mostly blind.
I went through a phase back in the day where I kind of went through like a pro Medicare for all, anti SJW phase, I think, as any young white guy does.
Yeah, I mean, everybody comes to their politics for different reasons.
And so I was actually for a while a pretty big fan of Jordan Peterson, and it was, I did always think that, occasionally he would kind of go off on the rails, but he seemed like, since coming back from his benzos addiction, he seems different. He seems like less coherent, less stable, less earnest, and just way more mad, like just and not even like, I don't even know how to describe it, not even mad in like a righteous way, but like mad in a old man yelling at clouds,
like a
bitter, like, yeah, just a bitter, biting anger at the world. It's really strange.
So let me ask you, like, and this is kind of just my perception from the outside, looking in, is that he just tried to position himself as like kind of like a pop intellectual type.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like,
he's always,
he could be the Chomsky or Zizek or somebody for the right wing, anti-feminist crowd.
For sure.
That's kind of what he's aiming for, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so let's play this first clip and see what you think about it. It's like near the beginning of his message to CEOs.
Okay.
We are in the midst of a culture war. Although it started in the universities, particularly in France, through the open portal of the damnable Yale, and then into the rest of the institutes of higher education, it is not only the faculty and administrators of our colleges and universities who are at fault. Those charged with the privilege and responsibility of running the corporate world are lining up to kowtow at the DIE altar, diversity, inclusivity, and equity, at a rate that exceeds, and with a cowardice comparable to that characterizing the most contemptible of pencil-necked academics.
So that was the intro to the thing.
Okay, so culture war allegedly started in French universities, imported to Yale.
Yeah.
It's now infecting the CEOs of America.
Yes. Yeah. I think we can start with a point of agreement, though. Yale is contemptible.
Sure, yeah.
We can agree on that.
Not a fan. Not a big fan. CEOs being cowards. Okay. Yeah. I can roll with that.
All right, yeah. Let's go to the next clip.
I had hoped that CEOs in particular evil capitalists all would reject this nonsense, this idiot postmodernism with its denial of any objective world, divine or material, this appalling and murderous Marxist wolfery in sheep's clothing. But it turns out that the left's ability to weaponize guilt and the contempt that far too many in the business world have for ideas have proved an unstoppable combination.
So, all right, I'm getting the sense that this is, we throw buzzwords together.
Yeah.
We throw a lot of academic sounding language together to make ourselves sound like we know what we're talking about,
because Marxism very much does not posit that there is no real world, material or ephemeral.
Right, it's actually materialist. That's sort of the foundation.
The foundation is that there is a real world, and we need to we need to agree with it or not. Marxism is a materialist, modernist, not postmodern, view of history, historical materialism.
Analytical framework, philosophy, however you want to couch that. Postmodernism, Marxism, not the same thing.
Actually very contradictory. But so he's also saying that CEOs are like so guilty that they're kowtowing to the postmodern Marxists.
Yeah, I'm confused as to what guilt they may have. Now, should they feel guilty for exploiting workers and for destroying our planet and putting our species on a path to extinction? Yes, they very much should feel guilty about that, but I haven't seen much evidence of that. And certainly don't see them pandering to a philosophy that literally does not exist. Yeah.
So here's in the next bit he's going to start talking about some of the ways that they are kowtowing. So let's play that.
Yeah, prove your case. But
And even worse than the dreadful HR/DIE combination, perhaps, if that is even possible, is the new corporate and government craze for environment, social, and governance dicta, so-called ESGs, as every idiot fad needs an oh-so-in-the-know acronym. As one set of corporate consulting half-wits and moral posturers put it, quote, investors are increasingly applying these non-financial factors as part of their analysis process to identify material risks and growth opportunities. ESG metrics are not commonly part of mandatory financial reporting, though companies are increasingly making disclosures in their annual report or in a standalone sustainability report. Non-financial factors applied to identify material risks, standalone sustainability reports. All this smacks of central planning, not to mention a low, shallow, self-justifying moralizing, which can and does in no wise stand in for genuine ethical action.
Wait a second. So you're telling me what is, like, definitionally neoliberal tactics, right, of using the marketplace is the same as central planning? Mm-hmm. Because some companies are reporting on their environmental impact, which, by the way, companies should have to report on their environmental impact.
Right.
That would be my opinion. I think that's a very reasonable thing to ask. I'm not really that concerned about it as an investor because I don't have enough money to be considered an investor. But yeah, it's not a bad idea that there be some accounting publicly of what companies are doing to the planet.
Yeah, and I do. There is. The bit about central planning was very strange, but there's a certain amount of truth there that he's getting at, that is the ESG stuff is obviously, it's no substitute for like real ethical behavior by a company.
Yeah.
But it's bizarre to me that he sees this as so important, that he's seeing ESG, environmental and social and government's impacts reporting as just the reporting of it, not even like necessarily the changing of it, just saying like, oh, this is what we're doing. And of course, since it's not mandatory, they're able to skew these numbers in ways and pick what numbers they want to say in the ways that they want. It's bizarre to me that he is acting like this is a huge issue, and it's bad, and it's a big issue, because it's just greenwashing, basically.
Right, yeah. I mean, if he were to actually talk to anyone who is an actual leftist, not just the ones like in his imagination, but, legitimately people on the left, none of them would I don't think would say, oh yeah, ESG is a game changer.
Right.
This little reporting that they're having to do, that's accomplishing our goals.
Right.
Come on now. I mean, and what I'm picking up here is whether it's the ESG stuff, we're talking about DEI and how that's fused with HR departments, is kind of picking aspects of the current neoliberalism, aspects that folks on both the right and the left would have issues with. So he's picking those out. So there, like you said, there's elements of truth, like any good propagandist. Picking those elements out of neoliberalism that folks on all sides would find objectionable, or on most sides would find objectionable, but then ascribing it to not neoliberalism, but to some conglomeration of leftism with postmodernism, with neoliberalism. I mean, it's a very bizarre way of looking at reality. As someone, I would consider myself to be on the left, in the Marxist tradition, the materialist tradition. So for me, this just, it all sounds like you just made up some shit based on a few random Wikipedia pages, honestly. Like you're just pulling out some buzzwords. Like you've heard just enough to be dangerous in your ignorance.
Right.
That's the vibe I'm getting.
It is really weird, and that's what he's and he's going to talk some more about HR in a bit. But we have got real criticisms of the way that these management, this is coming from the top, this management branded diversity training, this Robin DiAngelo white fragility stuff.
Right,
We've got the
grift.
Consultant class. We have real critiques of that, and you can go back and from a working class perspective, from a perspective that these are ways that the CEO, the owning class, the bosses are trying to whitewash, to greenwash, to launder their public image, to make themselves seem in the public eye less evil, as a way to make money,
right.
As a way to better facilitate their capitalist endeavors, not as a way to actually make the world better, not as a way to actually make their workplaces more inclusive, safer for people, make sure that they have better working conditions. It is simply as a way for the least investment possible, to make people shut up and to buy their products and to not organize for better. That's what it's all about. And we see it in union busting tactics now as well. We're seeing people coming we saw it at REI. They opened their anti-union podcast with an indigenous land recognition and reciting their pronouns.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, which, whatever, if you want to do those things, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. But they're trying to launder their reputation and their neoliberal, capitalist, boss, pro-boss, anti-worker political agenda through woke language. and to make themselves seem more ethical and like they care and all this, and it's just nonsense. It's all nonsense.
Yeah, and it goes back to actually the discussion in the YouTube chat among Strom and Rai and maybe some others about this very topic and the ways in which this sort of rhetoric is used by capital to fight solidarity. And I think, like you said, there's absolutely critique of the diversity hustle, more or less. If you want, I think would be a good name for it. As you said, it's a way to launder reputations. It's a grift for some people. It's a way to actually counter real solidarity because HR departments are not going to bring us racial justice, right? I mean, it's not going to bring us the sort of solidarity that we need between race and gender and religion and nationality. We need real solidarity across those lines, that some of which are real and some of which are artificial. But even if they're artificial, still have real effects. But that is, and so I think it's just interesting to me that there are people out there who are getting their ideas about all this from a guy like Jordan Peterson, because they're coming out of it so misinformed about the state of politics in this country and the state of ideologies in this country.
The state of workplaces.
Yeah. I mean...
Yeah, well, speaking about the HR and the state of workplaces, let's play that clip about HR running the company, because that is really kind of the shtick that a lot of people on the right are running with right now. That CEOs, poor CEOs, executives, are being held hostage by these super powerful people in HR. So let's see that.
CEOs, how can you not see? Oh yes, there's that contempt for ideas again. There's that guilty pandering to the utopian leftist mob. The DIE mandates and ESG disclosures and the massive administrative bureaucracy that thrives on such pseudo work is precisely equivalent to the worst sort of fifth column. You CEOs are elevating the least competent people in your corporations, that's you, human resources personnel, to the highest positions of decision making and company planning, turning over your hiring decisions to those deluded enough to think that diversity is a substitute for ability, and to believe that equity merely means equality of opportunity. What does it mean? How about you take the time to find out?
So see, you can see there that he really thinks that HR departments are like running the country.
That's just
which is
absolute joke in contradicting real life. I'm sorry.
I just talked last week about how I met this person who was in HR who was despondent at the role that she was playing in the company because she had come up through college with a sort of idea, maybe along the lines of what he was thinking, of what he's trying to put out there, that as an HR department worker, as an HR manager, you are going to be able to help the workers. You are going to be able to help them advocate for themselves. You are going to be able to be a resource for humans at the companies that you work at. But what she found as an HR worker is that she became a cudgel for the boss. The only thing that she's been able to do is inform people that they will not get their raises, inform people that their health care benefits are going to be cut, inform people that they are going to have to return to the office before they wanted to, that just delivering bad news for the boss and covering for him or her. And so, the idea that executives are being held hostage by HR is just silly. They are hiring these people, even people with maybe potentially good politics, as a shield for themselves.
Right. Everyone who's ever worked in a workplace big enough to have an HR department knows that the HR department is there to give you a runaround. Mm-hmm. That's their primary task, is give you a runaround, deliver bad news. That's the majority of your role.
Right.
Now, he said something about...
I mean, well, just really quick, let's look at the spokesperson for Starbucks, who also happens to be the diversity, equity, and inclusion person at Starbucks, Reggie something or another. He is deputized to attack workers in the media. That's like his whole job now. That's his whole job now, this guy, to such an extent that he called us up after after we covered the Memphis 7, talking about how, they actually deserve to be fired or whatever. This is this guy's whole job, and he's supposed to be like a diversity guy.
Yeah, how does attacking workers promote diversity, equity, and inclusion? There it is in the nutshell. There's the contradiction and how it's bullshit. Now, when Peterson said something about corporations hiring incompetent people and promoting incompetent people, well, okay, yeah.
That's always happened.
That's always happened. I mean, the Peter principle, that's been known for a long, long time. Most people, most working people know plenty of folks who are in management who are total morons.
Yeah.
And in some cases, that's why they got promoted to management, right? Because they would just do as they were told. They didn't mind, compromising their ethics. They weren't going to make any waves. Like, none of that's new. There was a comment from Rai that I really like, saying that the right wing doesn't like wokeness because they see it as unifying disparate groups of people, while neoliberals try to use it to outflank labor on civil rights issues. It leads to this bizarre stuff, and I think that's very true. That's a good comment, and I think that's where sometimes we get bogged down in these debates. Because you have it coming from different directions for different agendas.
Right. In the next clip, Jordan Peterson, in his free market worship, which is funny because he's supposed to be like a Christian or something, but in his worship of the market, he misquotes Adam Smith, and so that's pretty funny. So let's play this clip about the invisible hand.
Counterproductive in an absolute sense. We have a decentralized free market economy so that the invisible hand, which is actually a gigantic distributed computational system, calculating adaptation to the transforming horizon of the future, so that the invisible hand, the free choice of product and occupation characterizing billions of people, can guide us as unerringly and selfishly, thank God for that, as possible into the future. And this simply cannot be replaced by the utopian hand-waving of centralist, globalist planners, even if they are blessed with the charisma and brilliance of that consummate conference organizer, Klaus Schwab.
I also want to make note of the fact that this really feels like a spoken word poem kind of thing, which is funny because of like right-wing disdain for anything that might feel, artsy-fartsy. Yeah. Because there's definitely some really intentional alliterations and wordplay and, very, very much like you could imagine this shortened, obviously, at an open mic night as a spoken word kind of rant poem.
Yeah, well, it's pretty abstract because he's just throwing random phrases and names and ideologies together in a way that does not actually compute. He's that classic dumb guy who knows how to try to sound smart for other dumb guys. That's kind of how he comes across to me. And, I'm trying, obviously I'm biased, but I'm trying to hear him. I'm trying to hear what he has to say because obviously he reaches people. He has a following. And, it seems to me that a lot of young men who are going through, political exploration or just kind of trying to find themselves in the world and what they believe and what they think, he really seems to have targeted that audience. But
yeah, well,
I feel like any degree of like real scrutiny though, and on the substance of what he's saying, can't hold up.
And, the idea that the market is taking us unerringly into the future or as unerringly as possible is just bizarre to anybody that has spent any amount of time in, the real world workplace that the free market creates. Pretty weird thing to imagine that this is the future that we have been brought unerringly to by the free market. But he mentions the invisible hand in a way that was the phrase was coined by Adam Smith, and he's using it in the totally wrong way. So let's check out, because this is something that Chomsky hits on a lot. So I pulled this clip from an interview with Chomsky, and let's play that and figure out what the invisible hand is actually about.
Smith is very rarely read. He's worshipped, but not read. So, for example, everyone's heard of the phrase invisible hand, but almost no one knows how he used it. The term invisible hand actually does appear in his classic Wealth of Nations once. It appears in an argument against what's now called neoliberalism. What's now called neoclassical economics that we're supposed to worship. So we're supposed to worship Adam Smith and neoclassical economics, and they radically differ on the notion invisible hand. Adam Smith was concerned, as David Ricardo later was, that if there was free movement of capital and free import of goods, he was concerned about England. He said England will suffer because British capitalists will invest abroad and they'll import from abroad, and that'll harm the English economy. Ricardo had similar concerns. And Adam Smith then gave an argument. It was not a very good argument, but his argument was that English investors will prefer to invest in England because of what some called a home bias. They'll have a preference for investing close by, and therefore, as if by an invisible hand, England will be saved from the menace of free capital movement and of free imports. That's invisible hand. What's that got to do with the Cato Institute or the modern enthusiasm about free capital flow and having U.S. corporations invest in China so they can send stuff back here to sell cheap, exploiting Chinese workers? That's not Adam Smith, and it goes right across the board.
So I think that that's just one thing that he clearly, has not read kind of the source material there.
Well, I mean, and that's not the only thing, because one thing I am familiar with is I know he had a debate
with Zizek.
Yes, he had a debate with him, and if I'm not mistaken, he certainly revealed in his performance that he had never actually read Marx, but I think he actually came out and said that he hadn't actually read any Marx. So, for a man who loves to call all sorts of things Marxist, it might help if you actually know what that means.
Yeah.
By the way, we have a call. Well, never mind. We did have a caller on the line. Looks like we lost our caller. So if you were trying to reach us, give us a call. I'll put you on. Sorry if I overlooked you.
Yeah. No, I saw that, and I was going to get through this and then get to him. We've only got a couple more clips left, but yeah, if you want to call in just a few more minutes. But yeah, so given all of this, all these problems that he has with CEOs, here is where he begins to give them some advice. Let's go to that next clip.
And so, CEOs, you need to shed your guilt. You are evil capitalists, just as charged. You've worked your whole life to be precisely that. Are you going to capitulate now in the face of social criticism and disavow everything you have done? Instead, you should wear that badge proudly. Evil capitalist, recognizing explicitly that there is simply no better alternative.
Well, he's throwing back to old Maggie Thatcher. There is no alternative. Evil capitalism, the best we can do.
Yeah.
How's that for a slogan?
Yeah. That, I mean, you know, I don't know. That's pretty wild. And the idea, you know, again, he's saying, why would you throw away or disavow everything that you've done? The thing that he's saying is indicative of their disavowal, again, is them using HR departments as cover for their evil capitalism that they're doing, right? That is the thing that he's saying is them disavowing their, you know, capitalist motivations.
And most of the CEOs who he may be referring to would probably laugh their ass off hearing this video.
Yeah.
Like, this guy doesn't even get what we're doing.
Right.
He's not in on the game.
Yeah. And let's play this next clip.
Why are you kowtowing to those who despise your companies and your accomplishments? Perhaps it's genuine guilt. The conscientious strivers who often come to occupy positions of authority in conservative corporate institutions are dutiful, industrious, orderly, and hardworking. This also makes them guilt-prone.
Really, I've.
That's a pretty interesting description of CEOs.
Yeah,
and bosses.
Can't say I've run into a lot of guilt-prone bosses. In fact, their lack of guilt is what helped them rise to the top.
Right. Well, speaking of rising to the top, he feels pretty confident that they deserve to be there. And let's play this final clip.
And even more so, as it's too much for CEOs and other denizens of the executive suite to request. So, stop saving the world with the centralizers, globalists, narcissists, and eternal builders of the Tower of Babel. Stand forth instead, as I said, as proudly evil capitalists. Do your fiduciary duty. Provide your customers and clients with what they need and want. And let the great invisible hand, that immense computational device, play its necessary role. Make your enterprise productive and profitable. Make yourself generous and abide by the dictates of your conscience. Do enough signal good so that your great wealth rests lightly on your shoulders. This is a more difficult task, take note, than generating that wealth itself. Put the human resources DIE personnel back in their place. Stop hosting faux democratic town halls. Since when do you care what the stock boys think? In a few decades, if they have the fortitude, ability, and industriousness, they will be sitting in your hard-won place and making the decisions that you are currently charged with making. Did you not earn that right? Then why forego it under moral pressure? And if the answer is guilty conscience, then straighten yourself out. Get your oppressive superego under control. Or stop doing those possibly terrible and unworthy things.
So that's pretty interesting.
Oh, the stock boys.
I mean, there's so much there. Maybe I should have cut that up. But the idea that they earned their place, the idea that the idea that the bosses should listen to their workers is spewed with such contempt, like contempt for the idea that workers ought to have any say in their workplace. is just astounding. Like, most of the people that are going to be listening to this are going to be workers. Most of the people that are going to be listening to him are not going to be bosses. They're going to be people who go into work, who clock in and clock out and have to answer to somebody. How do you not hear what he's saying?
And feel that contempt.
And feel that contempt for you.
Yeah.
As the metaphorical stock boy. How do you not feel the contempt that he has for the order takers?
Oh, you lords and nobles, how dare you ever listen to a peasant?
And again, he's saying like these faux democratic town halls. He almost seems like he gets it for a second by saying faux democratic town halls, because these democratic town halls that people like Howard Schultz and all these others are putting on are just that. They're faux.
They're bullshit.
They're bullshit.
That's true. Totally true. That's bullshit.
They are just a mask. They're just a shield, something that they can point to say, look how progressive and woke I am. You don't need higher wages because you got to talk to me at a town hall. Or better yet, you got to have an empty chair represent you at our at our board meetings like Starbucks does. It's just a game. It's just a game. And it's just bizarre. And then, you know, the bit about, okay, the stock boy might be taking your place in so many years if they're industrious enough. I mean, there are only so many CEO positions. They will not all be CEOs, no matter how industrious they are.
Well, folks like to think they're the elite of the elite. And I imagine, like you said, he's the majority of the people who are going to listen to this video are probably just like the majority of the people in this country, which are working class. But I think my guess is he's trying to kind of talk to them as if, hey, if you're not elite yet, you could be.
Right.
You know, you could be one of these elite evil capitalists, and you should be proud of that.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It's bizarre.
It is, and I you know, this is probably the most I've really engaged with Jordan Peterson content. Can't say I'm impressed.
Yeah.
The fact that this guy has an audience, quite a disturbing reflection of the state of our public dialogue.
So here's where we'll end it for if there's been any Jordan Peterson fans that have made it this far, that made it through a 30-minute critique of his message to CEOs. I appreciate your time. I really do. I appreciate you, unlike Jordan Peterson, believing that the input of workers, of people who are at the bottom rung, people like me and Adam, that what we have to say is important enough to listen to. Jordan Peterson doesn't think that. And what I would want to say to you is that what you have to say about the work that you do does matter. I believe that the people who put in the work, the people like down in Brookwood, the coal miners who are on strike, the people who actually bring the coal out of the ground, they should have some say over their workplace. The Starbucks baristas who we're about to go see down in Scottsboro, who the company is retaliating against them while they're hiding behind a progressive veneer through these democratic town halls. The Starbucks baristas who actually make you your coffee should have some say in the running of their business. You, whatever work that you do, because you're almost certainly a worker and you're not a boss if you're listening to this, just by the nature of statistics and how many workers and how many bosses there are. The workers who actually do the work, the workers who make the world run, the workers who run the businesses. And you could do it without your boss, and you do it without your boss every day, I'm sure, in most workplaces. You deserve a say, and it's not bad for you to have a say. In fact, it might even make your business more profitable for you to have some amount of say. And even if it doesn't make it more profitable, it will probably make it more productive. And even if it doesn't do that, productivity and profitability are not the end-all, be-all. I don't think that. I think that worker human well-being is going to be the end-all, be-all. And that's what we should be striving towards. And workers having a say in their workplace is going to do more of that. And all of this that he's talking about, the HR departments, the woke, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, the environmental, social, and governance stuff, all of this is a veneer that bosses are trying to put over their businesses to try to shield themselves from public backlash about the way that they treat their workers and the things that they try to do to their consumers by giving them unsafe products and giving workers unsafe working conditions. That's not actually what the left or workers would advocate, is for these management initiatives. It's for workers to have a say. And you can do that through unionization. You can do that without your boss's permission. You can do that with your coworkers and take some amount of control back from the bosses because they haven't earned it and they don't deserve it. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project. And you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.